Hello and welcome to Zwei, Null. I don't know what that accent is. The TLG podcast, Gwent podcast. My name is Jaggerous, and I'm joined on the hosting desk by Spyro. How are you doing, Spyro?
Welcome everyone. Got some stuff to talk about today. We have a lot of upcoming stuff coming in Gwent, and also some stuff that's already happened that we should probably touch on. So it should be quite nice. We're joined together here today with Gravesh and QuillandLance.
This is where you say hello, guys.
I used the visual cue to say hello to them. You would know that if you would actually check the cameras, Jack.
Well, there's also an audio version of this podcast on various forms of media, so you need to use your voice.
Honestly, this podcast only makes sense if you get the full package. So sucks to be you, audio only listeners.
It can be audio described. Gravesh smiles at the camera and waves in a jaunty fashion. He smiles and tilts his head to the right. Quill looks menacingly into the camera, thinking about.
We get Gravesh to like narrate his own actions too, just not even him speaking, just him narrating his own wave and stuff.
Basically, so we can cater to all bases. But yeah, so lots going on in Gwent at the moment. Where do we want to start?
I guess we can start off with the meta report. Just touch on the meta. So obviously the latest patch, we actually did see a couple of changes, which I was very surprised about, honestly, because obviously usually when it comes to like expansions, CPR usually doesn't end up making a big patch just before an expansion, which we did get a sizable patch this time around, which buffed up quite a few things. So it did change the meta to some extent.
Yeah, the most important thing, I guess, is like Pirates Cove and that sort of thing showing up. That's the big one, right? Syndicate has this new meta. They have access to the sea jackals whenever they want. So they always have access to a spender, and they can spend before they play a card. Like they can do that in one turn, which makes managing your finances, I guess, a lot easier.
Yeah. I mean, I actually underestimated the impact that the sea jackals would have. I didn't expect it to be that valuable, but apparently having the spenders on demand is actually a pretty big deal, turns out.
Yeah, I mean, like
spenders, efficient spenders, right? Like
just from the thought of it, right? Like Pirates Cove lets you play 2 4-provision cards basically whenever you want. Like we had this whole deal that like play 2 cards in 1 turn leaders are already kind of toxic. That's why I removed them. But Pirates Cove is kind of that on steroids, just from the leader alone. It's just very, very like well statted in terms of what it does in the faction. And then on top of it, like there's a bunch of other broken stuff. Like I have no idea what happened with Professor Buff. Like that was completely out of line, and now we have like this monstrosity terrorizing the ladder. And yeah, I mean, like the meta is actually a bit sad, right? Because we have Syndicate and it's keeps above everything. Like it just dwarfs literally everything. Even counter matchups like Keltalis are pretty much winnable. Even if you don't have any tech cards, you can still get like 40-45% in the matchups. And yeah, that's basically the meta. Like lose to Cove and then try to beat the other factions with whatever else you're playing.
Yeah, that kind of sucks that when you play the bottom tier factions, it feels like a little bit of a struggle with like compared to the top tier factions like Monsters and Syndicate. Monsters still performing quite well. We do have on our match board at least 3 tier 1 monster decks. We have a Ruckus Swarm, we have Curpus, we have V-Jam. But other than that, then when you start looking at tier 2, that's when things start going a little bit sad.
I have to say, I would also maybe doubt a bit the statues of something like Arrakis Queen in tier 1. Like Kelly and Bayer still, they're all binary self, just abusing the ladder like they always have. Arrakis got lost a bit in the crossfire of the changing meta, but it's pretty much on there, I think, in tier 2 with all the other lists that you can or cannot play. It's a very diverse meta, actually, because every faction is playable. Every faction has probably even 2 decks, maybe even more. It just feels a bit sad because there's a lot of binary matchups, especially around monsters, and Syndicate is just broken.
Yeah, Syndicate. I mean, at the start of the season, we saw people with this Pirates Cove list getting to what, like 2,600, like pretty quick on Syndicate. And when we think about the qualifiers that we've been having, for tournaments, you know, the top 16 and stuff. That was when kind of Pirates Cove sort of started appearing. That was like right after it had come out. And so, you know, in the top 16 at least, the meta hadn't quite settled. And you saw people who brought this Pirates Cove list just trashing everyone else in tournaments. But now that we've gotten a few weeks through, you know, we've gone past top 64, we're getting up towards World Masters. It's just completely started to dominate the meta. And I think for ladder grinders, you're up against it so often it doesn't feel very good. Whereas at least in tournaments, you can ban it, right?
Even then, like people can like, take advantage. There's in your bans so often like monsters is a type of faction where you either build a line to beat monsters or you ban monsters. So quite often you kind of need to ban things like V or Caltullus if you don't have a line that beats those decks. And you have to let the Syndicate go sometimes and let it through, which is kind of annoying because Syndicate's so good. So you either have to ban monsters or or go up against V. And if you're not equipped to beat V, then you're probably not going to have a fun time against V either.
I think also like the onset of Cove was quite quickly, and it was also kind of funny too because people like right at the beginning, like the first few days of the patch, obviously sleeping on it quite hard. And then I know Red Rain was extremely vocal about how good he thought it was, and it got people to take a second look actually right before that top 16. So I wonder what that top 16 weekend would have been like if like he just never said anything and people didn't take a really hard look at it too. Like he kind of outed himself there a little bit.
You know, honestly, when I first looked at the Pirates Cove deck, I thought I was like, where's this deck's points? It looks garbage. It's like, where's the points in this deck? I was like, it looks so bad. Then I played it myself and I was like, okay, apparently there's points. Wow.
Yeah, I also looked at it and I thought, like, this looks like pretty goofy actually. Okay, I'll give it a try on ladder. I played 2 games and I was like, oh, this might actually be pretty much tier 0. This is pretty good.
How quickly the tides have changed with Pirates Cove there.
Oh, how the oh god. I'm slowly
so what else?
I'm just like
what else actually got changed in the meta? We basically have some Skellige with the discard package now being included every now and then. That's pretty much another key aspect that's changed. I'm not sure how much it changed. Like, I don't know, the discard package gives Syndicate more of a red coin abuse potential, I guess, but that's
we've tried a lot, like a lot around discard package, SK, especially discard package Blaze of Glory. Like I was also helping the Morkis and Colemon prep for World Masters, so like we obviously did scrims. And what I will say is that I am still not sold on the discard package being better than regular Blaze of Glory, because it adds power to the deck, it adds round 1 potential to the deck, but it also, like, it's so wonky. Then you draw them in like a random order where you can't really control them, and then you have to not draw the Utah, and then you finish with like 2 cards in deck, and it's like when it works out perfectly, it's strong, but
like, and I like most of my witnessing has been like casting of these games and just kind of like watching other, but I've just seen like people draw the nuts in round 1, right? Like they have Burna and like Coral and stuff, but either you're over committing with those cards, which kind of takes away any potential for like smork ability in round 2. So it takes a lot of that way too. In a matchup where you might want to do that, but then also like you slam these points on the board in the first couple of turns, and then like what do you have after that? They just play a couple engines and then they win the round anyway, and you're out of Burna and Coral, and like I don't know. I do like the engine Beagle version a lot more. I just feel like it has.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree with Will.
So
I was just going to say, from a casting perspective, so many times you just see people not draw their discard package. Or in round 1, it's like you have Burna, you have Coral, but you don't have your discard target, so you can't use it then. Or alternatively, you have your discard targets and you have Coral, but you don't have Burna, so you don't really want to discard too much. And it just becomes this really slightly awkward situation. And I feel, having cast quite a few games just across different metas that have included the discard package, I feel like I see it go wrong more often than not. So I mean, like when it pays off, but it's quite a risk, you know, to need very specific draws in a very specific sequence. That's the issue. It's not about drawing the cards, it's that you need them in a certain order. And if you don't get them in that order, you're just scuppered.
Well, like you have the discards in round 3 too. Like you mulligan into them or something, and like you have Yuta sitting in deck and not wanting to obviously draw into that, and you just kind of like clench your butt and then hope you don't You don't draw into the unit. Like it's just so.
Yeah, it's weird. It's so janky. Like it's just in round one, if you're on blue coin, it's awkward because your hand is a lot less playable because you're not as comfortable mulliganing away things like Herald and Ice as you would have been without the discard package with the Blood Eagle instead. And then, as Quill mentioned, you sometimes on blue coin have to overcommit if you want to take the round, or it just becomes awkward. Then in round 3, if you have to play a discard package round 3, well, play burn in round 3 and then draw into your Utin, that's a lot worse. And yeah, very awkward.
Like, I think on a base level, the discard package is well statted, right? Like, Coral is a good card, Burnout is actually a solid card. The more Quark discard is like, you could, but you don't have to. But like the problem for Skellig is a bit like they could actually make good use of the discard package. Like if you look at the Flurry decks, for example, where like with the Maxi together, you can like manipulate your deck a bit. You're not that reliant on having things like the Utah deck, so it works better. But then you realize one big problem of the discard package is that Skellig doesn't actually have any good top end. Like it goes up to 10 provisions, they're solid cards, and then you're like, what now? Like, I don't have like a Great Oak or so, or like other just high-end provision strong cards that I can put in. So I'm ending up playing a lot of mid-range cards, and that actually has anti-synergy with the discard package because I'm already so good at thinning through my deck.
Yeah, you make a really good point there about the kind of spread of the cards. Like Skellige has always been the faction with the good bronzes, for example. When they started making bronzes good, it was like at one point Skellige bronzes were like here and everyone else's bronzes were in the bin. But their high end just doesn't keep up. So I suppose if you're super thinning your list, it's like you're going to go through all your cards anyway. But you need that good payoff to find, right? The whole point of having some of that cycling is also being able to find your core cards. And if they don't have that, what do they have? And Skellige's in a bit of a sorry state, to be honest, because they've been warriors for God knows how long. And they're all just these kind of variants of warriors. Even if you go down the Reckless Flurry route, it's much the same style of deck. There's not that much diversity in the way that it's played. When Battle Trance was sort of a thing, at least there was something different going on with that list with the point slam. But at the moment, Skellige just feels like it's been the same for ages. I'm bored of Skellige at this point.
You say that, but then we have Kelly, we have Vi, we have AQ, we have Witchers, who are still a really good list in the meta. Gift is still running around. Like, I really hope that this expansion is a rather big shakeup. I really hope it.
Well, because all we've seen, like, with all these patches, it's just like one new deck added to the old decks. Like in Quill and Cup, for example, I've seen Cams bring basically the same lineup since January almost. Like, it's just.
But I would argue that at least with Monsters, you have choice. Like Monsters has 3 decent enough decks. That's where the other faction should be. There should be clear archetypes like in Monsters. I mean, we've had them for ages. I get that they're boring, but there is like 3 very distinct strategies. Whereas other factions, it's all kind of like a variation on the same theme.
Like, I think honestly, only Skellige and maybe Nilfgaard are in that trap for the most part. But then Skellige, you can play mid-range Flurry, like non-devotion mid-range Flurry. Nilfgaard can play Cloggers. It's not great, but it's on the brink of viable. And then the same goes for other factions too. There is some variety in the meta, but it's funny because at the start of the patch, you're always super hopeful. There's these new ideas, things got changed, you try stuff out, you realize KOF is mega broken. Okay, so what do you do with the other factions? And the longer the patch goes on, the more it's like, oh, well, I guess Witchers are pretty good. Guess we're playing Witchers. Oh, I guess like Gift is actually pretty playable. We're playing Gift. And it's like, and like Nilfgaard, like everyone was like, oh, the faction is destroyed. The ball nerf is so huge, like I can't one turn it anymore, it's done. Come next month, you play literally the same deck again with ball, and it's still efficient. It's still one of the better decks. It's kind of insane to me, honestly.
I really wish that Nilfgaard is just. I'm so tired of being the ball faction, honestly. How long has Nilfgaard been the ball faction? For like over a year at least.
I mean, it was the spy faction, and then it was just not a faction, basically. It was the spy faction when it first came out, it was trash. Then it became the spy faction, and spy faction actually was really good. Then it was no faction. Then Masquerade Ball and Scenarios came out, and now it's just been like ball faction. And then occasionally they'll add new cards like Brathens and stuff, or Usurper, and they'll just get added to ball faction. They just slot those cards in. Like that's where the high end golds, compared to Skellige, I would say that Nilfgaard has a lot of really good high end golds. And part of the issue is that they just have this ball that kind of carries the rest of the deck. Like, they have some good high angles, they have Masquerade Ball, but the rest of the stuff doesn't really do much.
Oh god, bronzes suck, honestly. Bronzes suck so bad.
Well, that's the thing with like the new ball, right? You have to slot some of those bad, like you've brought in Van Morum Hunters and stuff. That card, even when you lock like the best possible target, it feels like trash. Like that card, it's just so upsetting that you have to play that card just to proc ball now. Like,
I mean, I guess that moves us quite nicely on when we talk about bad bronzes in Nilfgaard. We should probably, because it fits, talk a little bit about new cards and how people are raging that, was it an 11 for 5? Is that the hot topic at the moment?
Or if you have some weird Reddit math, you can call it 11 for 9.
11 for 9. Okay.
Yeah, that's the Reddit math, Gravesh.
Oh, because you have to put in a 4 provision card as well.
Yeah, so you go 5 plus 4, and you know.
Imagine making your deck worse with 4 provision cards. It's such a high cost these days.
Oh dear, but it also depends how you think about it, because it's also thinning, right? So you gotta value the thinning because it gives you consistency on your other cards. So how do we value that as points, right? That's the other question. If you thin a card, that's obviously got some intrinsic value.
You could do a small calculation with this. The average value of a card in your deck is 6.6. If you thin out a 4 provision card, the average is going to go up to like 6.8 or 6.9 or whatever. So you're increasing the average value of your deck by like 0.3 or something like that if you thin a bronze.
But also it has the flexibility if you don't want to thin a card that you can make a Rot Tosser. Or you could put Afan at the top of your deck. So, really, when you think about it, this card's OP. It's OP and it's a bronze and it's only 5 provisions. CDPR, what are you thinking?
I mean, like, we can joke about it, but this card is completely busted. Like, it's one of the strongest cards I've seen the game release in a very, very long time. Because of what you just said, right? Like, not only can you go for the thinning power, it thins the card, the 4 provision card from your deck. You don't even have to keep the 4 provision card in your hand. And even without the combo, the Blightmaker itself is actually really strong. Like, you can play it for points, you can play it for utility and poisons, but you can also just play it for, like, just top deck the card you want in round 2. It's a completely insane card to me. And, like, I think easily the strongest card we got revealed so far in the expansion.
I agree, but whilst it is, I agree, broken compared to all the other bronzes, I wish more bronzes were like this, honestly. That's my take.
I don't mind not gold creep, bronze creep, to be honest with you. Like, I feel like in general, bronze creep is good, and Blightmaker kind of moves towards that. And also someone in chat saying Afan's not a mage. I'm like, it doesn't have to move a mage, and if Afan gets moved to the top of your deck, he comes out. So my understanding of the situation is it doesn't matter that Afan's not a mage. It's the same interaction as if you are playing Formation and move a soldier to the top of your list.
I think, in general, like, I don't disagree. Like, I think we need bronzes to be more build enabling, but I think it should be based around synergy and not based around just raw power level. Like, if I think of really good, well-designed bronzes that we got lately, I'm thinking Griffin Witcher Adept or Chimera. Like, those cards, they like enable archetypes or like go really well into the flow of archetypes. And when I look at the new NG bronzes, they're not only like crazy overstated, they're also just basically mid-range cards that you can slot into every deck.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I just like it when bronze cards, you actually look at the card and you want to keep it. I want bronzes where you don't just auto-mulligan them in round 3 because bad card, go away. I just want, it would be so nice if bronze cards are actually key cards within your deck and you go, okay, I have this bronze card, but I want to keep it because it's a good card. Because right now, like, gold cards are playing for 20 plus points and bronze cards, a lot of them are still playing for 6-7 points. And well, you need 3 or 4 bronze cards to make up the value of that one gold card that you missed in your deck, which feels pretty bad sometimes. And I really wish bronze cards had a bigger impact in the gameplay than just being round 1 play and then round 3 mulligan fodder.
Yeah, and I think that's like obviously good to like bring up though. But I mean, it's hard to see them bring up consistently the power level of a whole bunch of different bronzes with this card as well. Like, I mean, for the expansion just coming out, like, we're just going to see, unless they just nerf the crap out of it, just this card just be heads and shoulders above every other bronze. It's not like a bunch of bronzes are being brought up. Now, like, I agree, like, it's a lot nicer and kind of helps with that problem of just like missing your golds type of thing. But I mean, it's also thinning to go grab you those golds, and then also the other bronzes aren't going to be brought all the way up. So
I think it's a difficult one because Gravesh is saying that he prefers bronze cards that are synergistic, like Chimera and like Griffin, which are adept, but they still don't solve the issue you have of, you know, in a short round 3, if you draw a Griffin, which are adept, or a Chimera over one of your golds, you're completely forked, right? You're just absolutely just going to lose in that situation. And the argument is that if you have bronzes that play for decent pure power, that it doesn't feel as bad in round 3 if you miss your golds. So then how do you find a balance between those two contrasting sides?
It's a fair argument to make. I mean, a card like Griffin with your Adept or Chimera can still be really good even in short rounds, right? Like good Adept, not so much, but let's say you draw into it with like some other combo pieces, you still play for some points. Chimera, you need like 2 cards, some leader charges, still plays for like 12, 13 points pretty easily. Like I see what you're getting at. If you have too much reliance on synergy, the bronzes itself are weak, and there is a problem of like splitting up rounds. But I mean, there has to be a trade-off, right? Because the danger is like the stronger bronzes get, if it's only like point slam bronzes, then they're just going to be included into like the hardcore mid-range decks. Like then you get stuff like we have now with Kov, which is an abomination of a deck if you think about it. Because there's no real synergy. It's just, let me play the best card the faction has to offer. And it was just like, and you realize in every single slot, these cards play above provision curve. And like suddenly the deck is so broken that nothing can compete. And it's a danger you have if you release too many cards that are just good on their own.
Speaking of the expansion, I got a question for all of you. I'll stop one by one. What would you say is the most standout, or the most interesting, or the card you're most excited for, should I say, coming for the expansion? Let's start off with Quill. Which card are you most excited about? What have you seen so far?
I'm excited to go play Reins and then not ever have a unit on the board to be able to kill off, because it's like the exact power of the unit is how the card reads. So maybe it works differently than that, but I'm pretty excited for that. But really, what's that one? That one NR card that's like has like that spell synergy. He creates starting at 4 provision spell and has
Gerhard's of Ale.
I like him a lot, honestly, and I'd like more of a kind of like a NR Spell of Realms type of gameplay. I just want to play Alzer, man. I wanted to just jam some Alzer and let's go.
Right,
Gravesh?
Right up. I would definitely agree on that one. What do you say, Gravesh?
It's kind of hard. There's some exciting new cards, not Reens. Although I will say that, like, I read some of the Reddit thread to Reens, and the card isn't completely out of the equation, because it has, like, if you think about the ceiling, it has, like it's very high, but, I mean, realizing the potential seems somewhat impossible, so I'll reserve judgment on that one. But the card I probably am the most excited for is the Syndicate Legendary. I think it's called the Witch Finder, if I'm not mistaken.
Elizabeth Banks.
Oh no. Anyway, no, it just looks like an interesting card. I don't think like the full-on bounty archetype is going to be viable or like existing, and I think the other Syndicate cards aren't very strong, but this one in particular seems like it could find home in multiple decks, and I really like the design with the tokens, even if it's a bit toxic probably.
And what about you, Jaggerous? What are you looking to play?
I mean, I guess bearing in mind we haven't obviously seen all of the cards yet, but I'm interested about Northern Realms. Northern Realms is one of those factions where they have a lot of cool tools in the box already. With synergies with things like charges, you've got things like going on with the drummers and Anna and all these different tools. Like there's a lot of cool things in the toolbox of Northern Realms. They just don't really fit together properly at the moment. So I'm just interested to see how this expansion and future expansions interact with them, and if they tweak existing cards to kind of fit, because we've also got new keywords, right? Like we've got Sabbath, we've got Patience and stuff, and you can't just introduce a new keyword on like 4 cards. I mean, unless you're Turgvi, I guess then you can, But I don't know. I just want to see what they do with Northern Realms. Like, I agree with Quill. Like this whole mage thing going on is really cool, and having kind of this spell synergy, and maybe there's a lot of mages in NR going down that route could be good. But I just want to see what they do generally with Northern Realms, and I want to see what balance changes we get with these new cards. That's the thing I think I'm probably more excited about than the new cards themselves, is what they do around those new cards to fit everything together.
What I'm excited for is I really am curious to see what they do with some of the new keywords, because I really hate when they add keywords and then they just like kind of, it's become like a gimmick to sell expansion and then they kind of forget about it after
Like
that.
Rupture.
And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of mechanics. I mean, evolving cards have kind of been a one-off. Rupture's been a thing that I haven't really done much with. But like, for example, the Sabbath keyword, I think you could do a lot with that. For example, there's a card like Imrith, and I've said this a couple of times, but Imrith has the ability to draw, I think it's a random card, or is it top, I don't know if it's top card or random card, maybe it's top card, whatever. And then you discard a card and boost yourself by the power. But what if they gave him like an alternative ability? So if you have Sabbath, then instead of just drawing the top card, or if it's a random card, you can pick any card in your deck, make it a lot more consistent. And it gives just a bit of an upside, a card that sees like no play. You can also do things like with the Crone Trio. I don't know, maybe you could make them do something like you could, if you have Sabbath, then the Crones increase their counter by 2 instead of just 1. If you play them when they have the Sabbath keyword. If it's too powerful, then you can obviously maybe take a point off them one or 2 points here or there, or you can make them a provision of more. But things like that, use that Sabbath keyword on existing cards to make them, especially cards that see like no play, make them better. I would really like to see something like that being done.
I feel like Sabbath not being added to the Imlerith Sabbath card would be like a huge missed opportunity. But then again, that card has been changed. Like, is that like one of the most changed cards in Gwent at this point? Like, there's been so many iterations of that card, just granting new abilities, adding it, and still never played. Like,
this time they'll just change the name, so it's not Imlerith Sabbath. It's like Imlerith Tuesday or something like that.
It's
fix the problem by changing the day.
It's been only Imlerith for a long time.
Oh, has it?
Like,
oh God.
Yeah, that's the sad part. But like,
no one knows.
But that's like even more a reason to add Sabbath to the card to actually make it back to form. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree with Spyro. I think like some more reworks. We have seen some of this in the past. Like we've seen more devotion cards added to the game. Like I know that when Armor came out, it's a mechanic they've been using like a lot in the past expansions. But it would be nice to see more and see some reworks. Like especially now, if I look at some of these archetypes that they're trying to push with the expansion, if there's not going to be like some changes accompanied with this expansion to some existing cards, they're going to be completely dead in the water. Like if I look at Relics, for example, which is the most outlandish one for now, but also something like Bounty, like NR, we know gets some changes, but I don't know if they're going to go into this like making a mage NR viable, but yeah, I do hope that we get a rather big patch to really shake up the game a bit with this patch.
21 NR changes coming or something like that to like existing stuff. So
it's a lot for just one faction.
A lot, yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned Relics, because I'm pretty sure previously on Zwei Null, I made a joke about how you had some tags that didn't really exist as archetypes and used Relics as an example. And I'm pretty sure our conclusion was like, not every tag needs an archetype. And then we get this new expansion with these Relic tags, and it's just like, oh, okay. My concern, that kind of ties in with what Gravesh was saying, is I was concerned about how when we do expansions like this, where we get like these little pockets of cards, how can you introduce new archetypes? Because, if these archetypes aren't going to be viable until, later down the line when all of the cards from this expansion are released, then what does the expansion achieve by being released early? It achieves nothing. So you have to kind of change the way that you approach expansions. And, if CDPR can change the way that they approach expansions so that it works in this new format and it does shake up the game on a regular basis, that's a good thing. But that's if they can do that, and we'll have to wait and see how that goes.
Yeah, for sure. And then I guess we can talk about some events or have happened that that on the horizon already happened. I mean, let's talk about what's already happened. We've talked about the Arituza World Cup, which I believe just was concluded on Sunday. I know, Gravesh, you were participating in that.
Feels bad, man.
I know, Quill, you were casting in that one. So how did the event shape out for you guys? What was your experience within the event?
I'll let you go first, Quill.
No, I mean, I always enjoy like the longer event tournaments. Like it's nice to have like a bunch of series throughout the weeks Like I always enjoyed events like that where it gives people a lot of different times to tune in. And I mean, obviously the World Cup, the first one was like a year and a couple months ago, was like the first major chance I got casting to where I kind of like, I just got a random opportunity because they didn't have some people for a certain day, and I kind of just hopped in at 5 a.m. and just loved it. And I don't know, like it was so I have a kind of a little bit of a soft spot in that, right, for kind of the event. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to cast, and a lot of fun to watch Team Germany not draw Vies or consumes in round one. That was a fun experience, watching some haunts just get jammed because I saw Gravesh play in one game 2 tutors not for a Vi.
I guess that brings the next question for Gravesh. Like, how does it feel to like represent like your country so it's a bit different than normal tournaments, right? Because you're not playing for yourself, you're playing as a team. It's a bit of a different environment. Tell me what goes on the prep work. Do you as a team coordinate your decks together? Do you prep together? And how does it feel to like play as a team rather just like an individual?
I mean, like the country flag doesn't really matter that much, just the people you play with, right? At least to me, like I don't know how other people feel about it. But I mean, it's really fun, right? Like you get to talk Gwent with people you know. Like we had the same team from last year, Team Germany. I was the captain this time, and I was like, well, last year was kind of an embarrassment. Like we dipped out in the group phase after being like maybe one of the favorites. So let's just get the same team together and let's get redemption. We nearly got there. Second place is not that bad. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, especially because there was like a World Masters for the Marcus and Coleman right now. They weren't like super hardcore trying to win or so, but we did like some talks on what decks were good and what we felt like is a good idea to bring. And in general, I just think it's a fun tournament, right? Like it gives space for like some group tournaments, which I think is a really cool thing for Gwent. To have like groups that face off against each other and then making it a nationality-based thing is just cool. So yeah, like props to Red Ram and Santu for organizing most of it again, because I know it's a lot of work. I talked a lot with Red Ram, and as team captain this time, I also realized it's actually like you have to really get all the monkeys together and so that they work well.
We'll say like it's a problem we actually didn't in the Gwent community have stuff that like had a problem we haven't had for quite a long time though. But there's such just a lot of community tournaments kind of right now, as well as people prepping for 2 quality tournaments a month, and then there's like Open and Masters being selected. There's so much in the Gwent esports scene right now that's it's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because it's so hard to try and organize with people right now. I think it's just such a mess, but. It's a mess. I love the mess, to be honest.
And yeah, spoilers for the World Cup for those who don't know. Poland won, so that's your reveal there. And I feel like just given their track record in tournaments, no one is surprised. It's like Lewis Hamilton winning a Grand Prix. It's like you almost expect it at this point. So that was the World Cup. Then last weekend,
who won last year's? Who won last year's
Austria.
World Cup?
Austria. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. The dark horse.
But touching on what Quill was saying there about there being a lot of esports going on, we also had the Team Elder Blood Kalkstein event last weekend. So they're doing something completely different, where they just have like crazy rule sets, which honestly, me and Spyro were casting, and the level of jank was like, it was up here. It was.
Gravesh, you also played that one, didn't you?
Let's just say, like, scheduling community tournaments is not that easy, and thanks to Saber for taking over.
So Spyro,
and then spectacularly lost versus the newcomer. So I think Saber of the games we cast of pro player versus newcomer, Saber was the only one that lost. But in his defense, he honestly picked the worst. He had to pick from like a pool of decks. So you couldn't bring your own decks. There was like this pool of decks. And he genuinely had 2 that had Master Mirror in it, whereas his opponent had decks that had vague structure and synergy. So, if Saber had somehow won that, I would have been impressed. But it would have been more fun to watch Gravesh try and Master Mirror his way out of a corner.
I just want to say I saw a really, really nice Photoshop of Spyro. Are you going to get that similar outfit anytime soon? Like I really would enjoy seeing
What
that.
do you mean? That wasn't Photoshop, Quill. That was a picture.
No, we had to pose for those.
Yeah, what are you
That's
talking about?
some
Not
nice, a nice dominatrix suit you had on there.
Oh no, the TLG, they actually like okayed all their fit photos with us as well. They were like, hey, we want to use this for our promos. And I was like, you know what? Do it. Go on. Have fun. Like, take it and run with that. I don't care. Because they had this Rocky Horror Picture Show theme going on. But my point was more that it was really cool that they're trying to do events that are a little bit different. So rather than having regular tournaments, we see this with Aretuza, them doing the World Cup, with TLG doing this massive invitational, with Elderblood doing this whole horror thing. You can see that the teams are trying to shake things up with the way that they create tournaments and create esports, and everyone's trying to do something a bit different, which is really nice because it means that we're not just watching the same tournament week in and week out.
Yeah, for sure. Like if I think like last year, like early on last year, there were basically no community tournaments, right? Like it took a while for the community to evolve to a point where you could nearly say, oh, there's maybe too many community tournaments. Like I can't even choose what I want to do. Which is a good thing. It's a really good thing that there's so many people interested in playing them and interested in making them, which is cool. Like, it's nice to have a very active community.
Yeah, it's definitely been. I mean, Gwent is very busy all of a sudden. Like we have Gwent Open coming up. We got Gwent Masters coming up. We got expansions coming up. We got so much stuff happening. So definitely an interesting time for sure. And this has been one of my biggest complaints in like the Gwent environment. Is there's been so many situations where I just remember many times with like 6 months of just nothingness, like just dead. Just expansion comes out, and then for the next 6 months, it's just completely dead, and then another expansion, and then just dead. And now it's like there's stuff happening in between. Then it's really nice to have something to fill the void with all. And I said that my car just went out.
Yeah. Oh, power cut. Oh, good thing you have a generator. Oh, we also have the Flame and Cup, right? Where you finally embrace the fact that you literally smack talk everyone and made it an official rule set so people can't complain. It's like, I see what Quill's in here. He's like, oh, people might get upset when I say that they're garbage and I'm going to shag their mother. So let's make that part of the rules.
I mean, the cast I had with like Gravesh and the one with Spyro too is a lot of fun. Like it's actually kind of refreshing just to like. Although sometimes it was like hard trying to come up with things to say. Like if people don't misplay, it's like, oh, well, this is just regular casting. But luckily, we had a lot.
But that's what I mean. Is we've got all these different formats for tournaments across the community, which makes a really diverse kind of esports scene. But speaking of esports, we do have somehow, some way, Gwent World Masters Season 1. Don't really ask how that makes any sense when Season 2 has concluded, but that's coming up this weekend.
Unless a meteorite hits Earth and cancels it.
I mean, if we can get past Tuesday, today's Tuesday, and for the last World Masters, the original schedule, Tuesday evening was the day I found out it was cancelled. So if we can get past Tuesday, we've gotten closer to World Masters than the last time. Which is a hype thing. And I mean, in all honesty, I'm a wee bit gutted not to get to cast this one because I was meant to cast it the first time around. I'm going to be honest with you, it kind of sucks. But on the flip side, I'm sure like Shinmiri and Flake, and is there even actually was Flake is the only OG I think for this one, but Taya and Larnhar, they're going to do a great job, and I'm really looking forward to watching it because most of these people haven't played Gwent for years, so it's going to be a bit different.
Yeah, that's the thing I'm like most curious about, because a lot of these players I think are like taking like crash courses to like relearn the game as quickly as possible. Like I know Freddie's been playing on ladder quite a bit, and he was even playing the last qualifier, so he should be like at least close to his former knowledge of the game. But you have also people like life coaches just jumping back in the game for the last month and now like cramming as much as he can in to get like back on track. Which is gonna be interesting to see how these players end up like competing against like the new breed, so to speak, of players, or the players that have been around and playing consistently throughout the months.
Yeah, big props to Life Coach, I have to say, for coming back. Like it wasn't really what he wanted to do, the way I understand it. But if he wouldn't have realized the spot, some certain other individual would have been able to take his spot, and Life Coach was like, yeah, I'm not going to let that happen, but I'm going to donate all my winnings to charity if there's any. This is a really cool thing to do, I think. And I mean, I think the community has been like super happy about having some Life Coach streams back. I, for one, am, because they're really hilarious to see him go like, and say some random stuff is fantastic.
Oh yeah, the church, right, is probably one of his biggest memes right now. I've seen a lot of him just holding up the hair and
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. Like, how much do you think? Do you think like a lot of these players are going to be ready in time, or do you think that it's going to be tough to get back into it? What do you guys think?
I think Tailbot has a significant advantage.
I'm totally
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I know from like talking to some of those and prepping with some of them that like everyone's try hard. Like, I think Life Coach maybe not as much as everyone else. Like, I think he said himself he doesn't want to embarrass himself, which pretty fair. But like people like Game King or DeMarcus or so or Atsikov, like they've been hard on scrimming. Like they've been trying really hard, taking this really serious, building strong prep groups, and honestly, like I think we're gonna see a pretty strong tournament in terms of like level of play. Like I'm actually very much looking forward to it, and it's kind of hard for me to predict the winner. I don't think it's like an easy call for Tailbot or Colamone here. I think it's gonna be a bit closer than that.
Well, and I think there's gonna be a lot of like maybe not super conventional like lineups. I want to say there's going to be some spice, so it's not going to be like super straightforward. There could be someone that just like go, straight up just hard text for and then gets the right cue and then just like wins out against maybe a favorite. But that being said, like all these players were like top back when they played more, and I don't think the game has changed quite a bit, but like for people of their caliber, I think with a lot of like hard scrimming with people like Gravesh, Green Knight, all the guys kind of helping prep, I think they can whip them into shape pretty quick, and it's not going to be just like this night and day thing like with Tailbot and like the other people just getting right to the finals guaranteed.
Yeah, I gotta. Speaking of like predicting winners and stuff, what do you guys think of how do you guys think your odds are of winning the divination challenge? I think someone calculated the odds of like 1 in 280,000 or something. Of getting that prediction spot on.
Well, I don't know, because sometimes
I gotta do mine.
But you have to get the game score as well, don't you?
You get like some leader skins, like the Unseen Elder one. I think you get like 3 leader skins. You also get 1 border, which I think is completely exclusive. I don't think anyone has it because I don't think anyone's won the divination challenge in history. So I think you'll be the only person that has that border. And then I guess you get some meteorite powder. But I mean, you have to guess everything perfectly, which means it's like a 1 in 300,000 chance.
So is DeMarcus and Life Coach on the opposite sides of the bracket? Because if they are, I want those two to be in the final, because the pasta ability of those like final interviews of those two is going to be legendary. Like,
yeah, they are, because
DeMarcus is on his pasta
Friday,
game,
and Life Coach is against Tailbot. Except that, objectively speaking, here you're wrong, because what's going to happen is Tailbot is going to clap Life Coach, clap whoever he plays next, and then lose to Freddy 3-2 in the final. That's the prediction, you guys. Don't know what's going to happen with Freddy. He's going to win somehow, but he's probably going to lose 2 games. He's going to reverse sweep twice, because I hear, according to Spyro, that gives you an advantage if you lose your first 2, because you could pick the coin flip. So Freddy will lose the first 2, reverse sweep, do that twice, and then 3-2 in the final versus Tailbot, who will clap Life Coach and whoever he plays after that.
I predict Freddy's going to bring Armor Skellige, because one of his prep partners says there's a lot of random damage in the meta, and there's nothing more valuable than armor.
What the hell's Armor Skellige besides craft?
That's a good meme. I'm a bit afraid that coming into it, there's not actually going to be as much spice as we all hope there is, because like there's Freddy, there's Magpie, and there's also other people like DeMarcus or so, who has also brought like very spicy lineups to tournaments. So the expectations are high. But the meta and the game right now, it's not exactly open for huge amounts of creativity. So I mean, maybe I can see some spicy lineups. There's gonna be some spice for sure, but I don't think it's gonna be as crazy as we hope it's gonna be. And I hope I'm wrong with that because
I mean,
I'm
not
all
as
for like pure spice.
not as crazy as like Angleem in every deck and a meta that like no one would put that card in their deck.
There's also a lot of money on the line, and I feel like that makes
Yeah.
people more serious.
Yeah, biggest.
So it's all
biggest
fun and games until there's like
Gwent-
$250,000 at stake, and then suddenly you want to win. Like, who are these
What's
people?
the stake for like each round, like each game win? Like not the series, but just game. How much do you get for like each game in general?
Lots of meteorite powder and packs.
And you get a cool border if you predict everything right.
Exactly.
That's the real victory, not the money that is at stake, but the spicy Twitch drops, right? Let's watch for 84 hours and get, I don't know, a title.
Yeah. And then moving on now, we also have a Gwent Open just around the corner. I believe the Gwent Open it's after Masters, right? It's next month as well.
Next month,
right?
yeah.
And then we got that coming in, and I must say, it was interesting because like last Gwent Open, there was a lot of Polish players in the lineup. This time around, it's kind of shifted gears. We got a lot of Russian players in the makes of the next Gwent Open. So interesting to see that shift in dynamic happening. I believe there was obviously I'm not sure. Does anyone have the names of the players that are participating in that one?
Yeah, I was
Red
thinking
Rain.
right now. It's gonna be
Actually, I
Red
don't know if he's in that
Rain,
one.
Cams,
Yeah.
Wangit, Nick, Akala,
Yeah.
and who's the other two?
Luxa, right?
Iluha made it.
Some Wolf. Was it?
Oh, and Civ Great Wolf. Yeah,
Yeah,
those are the ones.
And Chase.
So interesting lineup, honestly.
A lot of players can make their first appearance, I believe. Quite a few of them, actually.
And then they're going to get nervous, and then they're going to get 3-0'd in the first round. Isn't that right, Gravesh?
Oh, wait, I never got 3-0. Shut your
What did you
mouth,
do?
Jaggerous. I never got 3-0. I lost a bunch of quarterfinals, but that's a different
Oh yeah, you're
thing.
the one who took about 8 years to qualify. You're not one of the TLG people who just got clapped in their first round. Because that's what we do here at TLG. We qualify for tournaments and then we get clapped. But then our Lord and Savior Piable, gifted unto us by some immaculate conception between Brewis and Geralt. That's his origin story. He's our savior that we need to come along, and he won season 2. So we're technically undefeated at World Masters level.
Oh, okay. If we're counting.
I mean, good odds when half the World Masters people are.
So Masters is happening on the current patch, right? The current existing meta,
Yes.
right? So the Gwent Open is going to be then on the new meta. So it's not going to give people that much time to prepare. Like it's going to be interesting to see what they end up bringing to that Open because it's going to be quite fresh into the expansion.
Is the Open the last weekend of June then? I'm assuming.
It will be, I think. I'm not 100% certain, but it should be.
Okay, so first weekend is, and then second and
it's
third,
weird,
obviously.
the last weekend is like the 26th, 27th weekend, so it might be the first weekend of July. Like,
Okay.
'cause the
Oh,
weekends
yeah,
are kind of
because
weird.
of the way the seasons work, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But there's not going to be that much time to prepare. Like the game's going to shake up drastically, I hope. It's going to be interesting because there's a bunch of creative deck builders in the Open. Like I'm looking forward to see what someone like Akala is going to bring, who's been rather creative on like making a lot of interesting takes on decks or like new decks entirely. It's going to be an interesting Open.
Interesting takes, like Geralt one day, Anseus the next, maybe Yurden tomorrow. I don't know.
Oh god, don't remind me. Don't remind me. Oh,
Just change your cards all the time, and then no one can predict.
The funny thing is, like yesterday, I was telling you guys a little bonus ladder story.
Ladder story.
Oh, let's go. I'm leaning back for the ladder.
All right,
We're
so
ready.
yesterday-
Let's get comfy.
All right, here we go. Okay, so yesterday I'm playing ladder. I'm playing my Kelly. Queuing against some of the NL. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna play around the Geralt. I'm gonna do this, and then what happens? I lose to an Igni because he's playing Igni. All right, a few games later, I play against another NL player, playing the same skins, NL witches as well. I go, okay, play around the Igni. We've got to play around the Igni, and then I play around the Igni. Bam! It's a Geralt and it's a killer. And then another game, a couple of games later, I play against another person, also default skins, same situation. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna play on Igni, I'm gonna play on Geralt, I'm gonna play both of them. And then down comes a Yurden, different player.
See, your mistake there was just not playing around all of the Geralts. If you're going to play around Geralt, you play around every variant of Geralt, and that way none of this would have happened.
Oh god.
So really, it's your fault.
So painful. It's actually so painful.
Oh dear, good old Geralt.
That's a lot of story.
And all
That's
his
a lot of story for the day.
The
This
thing is
is
that when
like- this
Sabbath
is
is
a-
a thing, isn't Igni going to be more popular?
No.
Like, yeah, it's patch day. You should basically play Igni to ignore the Sabbath players. Oh, what's
I'll
that?
tell you how it
25
goes, Jack.
points.
Like, I don't know if you've ever played a patch day, but what usually happens is you queue Nilfgaard. And then you queue Nilfgaard, and then you queue Nilfgaard. And then you queue someone who plays NR Witchers, and then you queue Nilfgaard again.
Oh,
It's
see,
a
I'm
bit
not in
less.
pro ladder on patch day. I'm not one of them top 500s that gets to stick around. I'm probably down at like rank 12 at that point. So for me,
And then you have,
it's
like-
just like,
But at least we won't have lockdown friends.
Yeah,
for the
exactly.
match.
I was going to say it, right? Because normally it's Lockdown NG that everyone plays, but now it's just going to be regular NG with something else.
And then you have like the 1 in 100 chance to queue into Gravesh playing like Sentry on Royal Guards with offerings or
I'm ready.
he's already built his list. It's waiting.
I'm looking forward to experimenting. I really have to say, like, it's cool to have these constant droplets of stuff and everything, but I personally would like more. Like, I love like 100 new cards. Bam! Like, it's Wild West for 2 weeks. No one knows what is good. Like, everything's random, and you can spend so much time in the deck builder thinking about things, making things, and it's. I really like it more than this. I still take it. It's cool. I want new cards, please. But there's merits to both.
yeah. My ADD definitely likes bigger expansions. Getting tired out in 2 days and then turning it off for another month.
Time
Now,
to slay the
patch day
spire.
deck building, expansion day deck building is the best. I remember last time when patch day I was playing monsters, trying to make Ardgaith work, and I was like 5 games. I'm like, you know what? Ardgaith is garbage. Like, screw this Echo card. It's absolutely trash. We're gonna play Winter Queen, but we ain't playing Ardgaith because that's a trap right there. And yeah, those kind of moments of deck building are a lot of fun because you're going up against all sorts of nonsense anyway. But just trying to figure out what works and what doesn't on a expansion day was always the best. And I agree with Gravesh that actually losing that is kind of a big deal because 20 cards it's never going to be as impactful. It's not like, oh, I want to try this, and I want to try this, and I want to try this. It's like, oh, maybe I could try this. This might work. I'll put this in this deck. But it's not the same kind of shenanigans.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's every faction's getting like 20 changes, and it'll be maybe a bit more impactful. But
That's a lot of changes. That's if every faction is 20. It's like it's like 120 changes plus the new cards. So that's a lot of changes actually that happens.
that would be some Wild West right there. That would be.
Yeah.
Just give every
We'll have to
card
see.
the mage tag. Just
I mean, the fact that
that
giving
mage.
20
We'll see what
changes to
happens.
NR, the fact that giving 20 changes to NR tells me they might go big on this like NR mages archetype because there are a couple of mages in NR that just aren't very good. So if you rework them, you could build something from that.
Do you think out of those 21 changes there will be an offensive NR Purify?
Oh boy, probably not. I don't.
Quill.
believe it.
No, because Peller,
Faction
he needs a place in the meta.
identity.
Ah,
Like, if you are, do you like? Have you never thought about the lore? Like, the Northern realms just identify with not being able to purify others. Like, it's just. This is how I feel when I queue up an NR deck. So if they take that away, honestly, like I'm deinstalling Gwent. Like there's
know.
no going back.
Plus, there needs to be a place for most valuable Peller. He's the MVP. And
Yeah,
if they
breaks
keep
the motion.
adding more purifies, he becomes less and less viable. And who
yeah.
doesn't love Peller? If you say me, then I'm gonna kick you out the call. I don't know if I can do that on Discord. I don't think I can, but still I'll do it.
you.
Right, do we have
When's the
anything else
last
to
time
cover?
we've seen like?
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, when's the last time we've seen like Peller? That's-
I feel
Mega
like someone
powerful.
had a Peller in the last tournament because I was casting with Bessie and me and him both love Peller, so we were like, oh my god, this person has Peller.
yeah, it wasn't that a
Must have
Peller in like Calculus or something randomly instead of
Yeah, it was something like that, Peller and Kelton.
Funny-
It wasn't in Northern Realms.
Funny story. Like when I was
story.
making my lineup for World Masters with Saber, like we were prepping together, like last year's World Masters, And then we like worked on the Keltalis list for a while, and there was a Peller in there, right? And Taskmaster was already a card at that point. And then we looked at the list a lot, and then we're done with it. We submitted it, and a day later, like Saber DMs me like, "Yo, so why are we not playing Taskmaster over Peller?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, that card exists." But the condition, the Peller sometimes can go for the defensive Purify, but the Taskmaster can't.
Yeah,
See,
it
I just-
actually happens against Nilfgaard where that become relevant. They like open your Akim and then they poison you and then you can't purify because you don't have the tallest unit. That can happen actually.
But it's also the classic Gravesh deck building trick. Slot one bad bronze in there so they don't ban it, right?
Of course.
I
So
always
what
thought
you're
that's what
saying-
you were going with in the World Cup with Walter. That was your...
Stop hating on Walter, man. Walter is the objectively best card you can run in Syndicate.
I was like wanted to scroll down and just see like a random wolf pack just to break devotion, hoping someone in the
Oh dear. See, the problem is that all these players have already submitted their decks for World Masters, so it's not like they can even take this like great advice that we have to put Peller in every deck as a bad card to somehow trick people into not knowing what to ban. So do you not ban Syndicate this tournament? What's the strategy?
I mean, I think there's some approaches you can take for this meta right now. You can either target monsters, which is risky because you could just not bring monsters, or someone maybe brings AQ or so. You could also try to just bring good decks, or like soft target, something like SK or Elves, or maybe even NG, if you think that a lot of people bring it. Regardless, I think most of the time you would just want to ban Syndicate. I know I would ban Syndicate 100% of the time because I think it's completely broken. But there's some merit to banning out Vi or Kelly with certain lineups. I think that's pretty much it, honestly.
So ban Syndicate or ban monsters. What if someone didn't
Pretty
bring
much.
either of those? I don't know why they would ever do that. Maybe they
That's
have
not gonna
like bad decks.
I think you just say, like, you just DM them and say thanks for the 50k.
Didn't someone ban your Skellige like they're in the last qualifier?
Yes, someone did ban Skellige. I made fun of it, and then I did not get punished for making fun of it.
There was a meta where Wangid's strategy, I think, was banning Skellige. Maybe I'm making that up, but I think when he qualified for Open 2,
Qualified for a lot of opens.
his strategy was banning Skellige. Maybe it might not have been Wang ID, but there was definitely a player whose strategy was, I'm just going to ban Skellige, and then that's what I'm going to do as my strategy. So, I mean, who knows?
We'll see. I'm ready to get told that my read on the metagame is complete shit by some like very creative decks in the World Masters. I'm looking forward to it, really.
Oh, I need to find a watch party where I can listen to Gravesh just talk shit about, because I'm not casting this one, and I'm not like we're not doing an alternative cast either. So I actually get to watch a tournament. I've never been in that position. I'm like, oh, I can sit in Discord and talk crap. It's gonna be great.
Speaking of watch parties, a little advertisement here. Where I mean, Spyro, you'll probably be joining in on that too, right?
Yeah.
We're doing one on Bushy stream. A whole bunch of us streamers and stuff. We're just gonna hop in and out of Colin Bushy's stream. There's probably gonna be it's probably gonna be the most gotcha watch party you've ever seen.
Basically, if you've been mentioned in a Reddit thread at any point, you're allowed on the Bushy broadcast. If they haven't smack talked you on Reddit, you're not welcome.
There's a chance you'll get the Quill special of just passing out before the Masters is over. But
What do you mean a chance? Isn't that a guarantee at this point?
pretty much, I can't remember the last like opener or master any like big Gwent tournament that I haven't been like plastered.
Apparently, it's the best way to watch Gwent. So, do we have any other news or announcements before we kind of wrap things up for today?
I think that's about all. I think we've covered everything.
Okay. Do you guys have anything you want to add, Quill?
Like always, tell your mom I said hi.
Gravesh?
Think about it.
No.
Nothing. Gravesh has no opinions. Okay. That's the first, Gravesh not having an opinion. Wow. Okay. Spyro?
I'm with Gravesh on this one. No opinions.
No
Smile.
opinions. Okay, and I guess the only thing I have left to add is like and subscribe. Or whatever it is that like streamers say. I don't know. I don't
fair-
stream. Let's be real.
My favorite part of the podcast, I get to look at the camera and smile and wave.
Oh yeah, we're almost at the Smile and Wave, boys. We're almost at the Smile and Wave. But yeah, if you enjoyed the podcast, you can always follow us wherever there are good podcasts. Unfortunately, we don't have an audio described version for everything Gravesh is doing. At one point, he was leaning back in his chair with his hands on his head. I think that was when Spyro was telling a story. He's been smiling. He's been nodding. Quill is currently waving. Actually, no, he's not, because he was waving about like 30 seconds ago. Yeah, so follow us where there's good podcasts. If you want to support TLG, you can subscribe on our Twitch channel and get some great emotes with really horrible emote names, because our prefix is horrific. Beyond that, have a lovely day. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll catch you next time. And now we smile and wave.
Yes.